Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is 5 o'clock and it's time for class. I'm Chalia Gambo and I'll be moderating for today's class on the executive, and our facilitator is the ED of the college, Mr. Kuli Lawal. So remember, as you come into class, you should write your name in the chat box and mute your mics, yes. So I'm just going to read through the profile of our facilitator for today's class, Mr. Kuli Lawal. Mr. Kuli Lawal is a Nigerian political figure known for his advocacy and leadership in promoting democratic governance, electoral integrity, and political literacy. He has held various roles, including the Executive Director of the Electoral College Nigeria, a non-partisan organization focused on strengthening democratic processes, National Publicity Secretary of the COA Party, where he developed innovative membership systems and promoted intra-party democracy, candidate for the Senate under the Alliance of New Nigeria, ANN, in 2018, author of the book, The Candidate, sharing his insights on politics and leadership, former country lead for Watch Out Nigeria, a social media platform aimed at empowering Nigerian voters. Lawal is recognized for his commitment to promoting political literacy, civic engagement, and democratic values in Nigeria. His work has contributed to shaping the country's political landscape and inspiring a more informed and participatory citizenry. So, ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator for today's class, Mr. Lawal, I'll advise you take notes and ask questions, as this is going to be a very interactive and interesting class. Please remember to put your questions in the chat box as you come in so you won't forget. So as time goes on after the class, we can ask you to unmute and ask your questions, and then we read your questions in the chat box. So ladies and gentlemen, our ED for today, Mr. Lawal.
Well, good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. This is also your first class with the college. And I would like to say it's a pleasure to have you guys here. Chalia, you guys have to help share my slides. I hope we're going to be able to do that without much ado. Sorry, I haven't adjusted this. So good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone. First and foremost, you need to understand that this is your first class. Yesterday was just an introductory class. Today is the first class. So today we're going to be looking at the executive. Now, the executive is one of the conversations I think we've had the most as Nigerians. We're always talking about the executive. We're always talking about what kind of conversations we're having on the executive, especially around the executive. Most of the time, we always have Nigerians are fond of, talking with the as regards the president, talking as regards the governor, talking as regards the local government chairman. And these are the kind of conversations we tend to have across our political strata. Like I said, this is your first class with the Electoral College. I'd like to welcome you all personally. I would also like you all to note that attendance is being taken critical from this point. Our classes are always on YouTube, but your attendance will not be marked on YouTube. If you watch the YouTube videos, we just let that yesterday, since it was an introductory class, just let that yesterday so that everybody could get a feel of how things are. Charlie, I'll just give you a few seconds so that you can allow the slides come up. Thank you. Okay, Charlie, thank you very much. So today's topic, as we said, is the executive. Yeah, I switched off my audio. I was waiting for the slide. So could we have the first slide, please? Thank you very much. So the executive. Now we need to understand that the primary function of the executive is to enforce laws, and these laws are created, of course, by the legislative, which is another course you're going to go through later, but it's to enforce laws. The primary function of the executive, from name executive, is execute. So the executive is the arm of government that starts with execution. Now, execution, of course, it's based on laws which are within the country or laws which govern the country. These laws, of course, sorry, I can't see this from this distance, so I might have to pull this closer. So it's to enforce laws and maintain law and order in a state. Now, a state, of course, is a territorial boundary. A country is a state. A state is also a state. So a state is a boundary. It's, of course, a boundary within the defined boundary and within the basic constitution on behalf of other arms of governance. Now, we need to understand that the executive is one of all the most tasked arm of government. And it's the arm of government that deals directly with those that, of course, the people. So we need to understand that the executive is actually, so the judiciary interprets laws, the legislative makes those laws, but the executive starts with executing those laws. So if you're looking at a democracy, you have to look at it in a full circle. Now, in a democracy, you need to understand basically that it's not always as you think it is. So if the laws are not done properly by legislative, the executive might not be able to function as is. Charlie, I maximized the PowerPoint so that I could see it. I can't see it from distance. The phone is at. So I maximized it. So stop reducing it. I can't see from that distance. Okay, could we have next slide, please? Thank you. So the functions of the executive. First one is enforcement of laws. So the executive is tasked with the enforcement of laws. Now, these laws, of course, as we know, are made by the National Assembly. So what kind of laws does the executive enforce? Let's look at it. First and foremost, the National Assembly came up with the Electoral Act, which you're, of course, very, very conversant with. Now, the enforcement of these laws are vested in the arms of the branches of the executive. So somewhere like INEC starts on the primary, though INEC is how would I put it, is being covered by the National Assembly, but its functionality is dealt with by the executive. It's on the National Assembly. Charlie, please could you enlarge it so that I can see? Thank you. Stop reducing it. Next, the appointment making. Now, of course, appointments are being made by the executive. Now, we all know that when a new governor is elected or a new president is elected, we all look into the ministers, we all look forward to the SAs, the SSAs, the PAs, etc. The whole wheel that makes things work. So, of course, appointment making is also tasked with is of course a function of the executive, and we need to understand that the executive, while making these appointments to achieve the goals they want to achieve in, let's say, state or in the federal, as we appoint it, is tasked by Charlie. Please, you guys, what's going on? Why is the slide moving up and down? Charlie and Peace, who's controlling the slides right now? Please, nobody should touch anything again. Thank you. So, of course, defense of the state is also tasked by the executive. As you notice, anytime any executive is sworn in, they clearly state that defense of the people is by the Constitution, of course, the protection of the people, and of course, is being vested in the executive, whether it's a local government level, it's a state level, or it's a federal level. Now, the president is sworn to protection of everyone within the boundary. Governors are sworn to everyone within the boundary. Local government chairman are sworn to protection within the boundary. Everybody always, and let's digress a little bit. Most of the people say, we need to give local government autonomy. I've always had confused state about it, and here's the position. There is nowhere that states are autonomous. So why should there be where it states that local governments are autonomous? But anyway, for the conversation, let's have it. Local government should be autonomous. But you've vested security in local government. You've vested a budget in local government. If anybody is conversant with when military was ruling, if you remembered Algon, which was Association of Local Government Chairmen and Co., which was functional in military, but the first person to give police their posh card. How can a local government be more functional and be more independent in military rule than it is in a democratic rule? Now, as regards defense of state, state governors will argue the conversation of state police. Yeah, makes sense. But there's no country as large as ours that does not have local government law enforcement. The US, of course, you watch movies, sheriffs and whatever, that's local government police. So if you have a country as large as ours, you must have a functional local government police. I've never subscribed or never, and this is just my own opinion, you don't need to take it. I've never subscribed to state police with the powers state governments have. And this is why. The state governments have already kidnapped the local government. They've kidnapped the state electoral commissions. They've kidnapped the state judiciary. And they've kidnapped state law enforcement. No, they're about to kidnap state law enforcement. I feel it will become a totalitarian government with state police. I'm more, and this is my own personal opinion, has nothing to do with the electoral college or discourse. And I'm more in support of local government policing as regards defense of the state. State governors will tell you they don't have control, they can't control the commissioner of police. Wait till you, as a reporter, you write against the government. You're going to have a situation where the government is going to enforce. I remember my friend Audume Kuri spoke against the Kaduna state governor at the time. He was arrested by 45 policemen. The state governor then can wield power. But when it comes to crisis or insecurity within local governments or in villages, all of a sudden they can't wield power, but they can wield power against political opponents. When it even comes to local government elections, state governors wield the power, or even incumbent elections when they are trying to return to power on federal elections, state governments wield power and do all that. So foreign policy making is also vested in the executive. Now, the executive, of course, I'm talking at this time, foreign policy making, but of course, be vested in the federal. Now, the federal, which is president, vice president, are tasked with foreign policy making. Now, Nigeria has remained since 1963. Except for our state clearly, Nigeria is a non-aligned country, so we do not tilt towards Eastern or the Western Bloc on any front. We have remained a non-aligned country. We work with whether it's Israel, it's Pakistan, Palestine, on these matters, or Russia and the United States, China and the United States, Britain, Australia, etc. Nigeria is not aligned. Nigeria is just moving with full functions. Now, with regard to financial functions, the executive is tasked with financial functions. Oversight is, of course, taken by the legislative on financial functions. So, executives disburse funds to where the legislative has already chosen. That's why legislative go over and ratify the budget. So when they ratify the budget, the executive moves with these finances into the directions the executive needs to function. The executive also grants titled honors for people like the MN, GFR, and other titled honors within a state or within the federal merit of honors allowed by the country. Next slide, Talia, please. Who is controlling the slides, please?
I'm the one.
Who's controlling? Who is I'm the one? I can't tell your voice. Who is I'm the one? Lisa, please, could you make it? Why do we have two slides now? I'm getting a little confused. Hello, guys. What's going on, please?
Charlie, I just stopped sharing. I was sharing already. Just leave it.
What is going on, please, Lisa?
Are you still seeing two slides being shared?
Yes.
Okay, I think Charlie's phone is hanging.
So, sorry about that. So, governance is the way and manner power is exercised and in the management of a country's human, material, and economic resources. Now, most people tend to mix politics and governance. It's quite a difference. So, politics is any route to governance. Is any route to an elected position. And the route, of course, involves and the difference in the problem in Nigeria is that we mix politics and governance together. So politics is the route to any elected seat. Now, governance is the way and manner power is exercised and managed using the country's human, material, and economic resources. That's what governance is. So governance is totally different from politics. We mix a lot. We mix a lot of times in Nigeria. We tend to mix governance and politics, and we try to put them in the same sphere. They are totally not in the same sphere. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you a clear example. We think, like for example, somebody will say, Lagos is a how would I put it, APC state, or Rivers is a PDP state. There's no PDP or APC state in Nigeria. There's even no APC government. Everyone is sworn to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And at that point, you do not see an APC flag behind the president. Though some state governors are cantankerous enough to put their party flags behind them, I don't know for what reason, but it's a flagrant disobedience to what the law is. There's no APC state. Everybody is sworn to the Constitution. And the moment you're sworn to the Constitution, the party action stops the moment you're sworn into office. The seat is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic, and the seat is non-aligned. Everybody that wins, there is no 5% or 95%. Whether it's 5% that voted for you and 95% that didn't vote, there's nothing like that. We are all sworn to the Constitution. We're all sworn to the kind of actions that we're supposed to give while working in power. So there's no APC state, there's no PDP state, there's no Labour Party state. There are states governed by seats that are guaranteed by the Constitution. I need us to fully understand this. There's a culture which has brought the fact that we think that these things matter, but they actually don't. So the truth is, governance does not belong to any party in any state in Nigeria. You have your thoughts. Yeah, I know. You have your arguments. Plateau, PDP, Plateau. There's no PDP. The seat is not guaranteed by the constitution of the political party. The seat is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we need to understand that. Lisa, could I have next slide? Thank you. Lisa, could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Or whoever is controlling the slides right now. So there are two different types of executive. There's elected executive and there's the appointed executive. Now, the elected executive, of course, we know at every level, the elected executive, of course, are for local government. Even for executive, there are three levels. There's local, there's the state, and there's the federal. So the elected, of course, are at local government level, local government chairman, and the deputy or assistant local government chairman, or as the case may be. At state level, the governor and the deputy governor. At federal level, the president and the vice president. Now, these are the elected executive at local, state, and federal. Now, let's talk about appointed executive. Now, at the local government, we have secretaries to different things. We have Secretary of Education at local government level. You could have SA to the local government chairman, admissible. Secretary of Health to the local government chairman. Those are appointed executives. At the state level, you have SAs, PAs to the governor and deputy governor. You have commissioners. You have chief of staff. You have different level, different functions, different people functioning within. So commissioners, chief of staff, SAs to the governor, PAs to the governor, or the deputy governor. Those are, or SSAs to the what they call it, to the governor. Now, at federal level, and also within state level, you have people that manage MDAs, DGs, etc., secretaries, etc. Now, at federal level, you have the same thing. SSAs to the president, SSAs to the president, PAs to the president. You have DGs, you have executive secretaries, you have chairman of bureaus, etc., etc. Those are appointed executives. So the elected executives, and I would state this, the Constitution allows them to participate in governance constantly. We have ministers also at federal level. So the Electoral Act, and we'll get to this, but the Electoral Act allows them to participate in governance, in politics, and etc. constantly. Now, the appointed, there's a clause in the Electoral Act that does not allow arms of the state. And I'll take your case back to Festus Keyamo, who was a spokesman for the presidential campaign. And this is an anomaly because the Electoral Act does not allow any arm as any part or machinery of the state to support or to work in line with any candidate, which means as an SA to a governor or as a commissioner to a governor, you cannot be campaigning for the governor. That's the truth. The Electoral Act, we'll get to the Electoral Act. I'm just helping you guys, giving the preamble to that. So it doesn't allow for such. But, well, we're Nigerians and we don't know our laws. We have quite a lot of laws and we don't know them. So let's allow that pass. Lisa, next slide, please. Thank you. So how do we achieve a functional executive? First and foremost, for an executive to function anywhere in the world, there must be what we call separation of powers. Now, separation of powers, when we talk about separation of powers, say, okay, there's the judiciary, the judicial arm, there's legislative arm, and there's the executive arm. Now they're separated now, they're different offices. No, let me help you. Police in Nigeria is under what ministry? Who can help with that? Who can tell me what ministry police is under? Anybody? Feel free. Just raise your hand or you could write in the chat box. We'll read it from here. Who can tell us what ministry police is under? Ministry of Defense. No, that's wrong. Alako, that's wrong. The executive, that's not an answer. Legislative, that's also not an answer. Okay, Olumide, Ministry of Interior. And that is correct. Now I'm going to expand this. No, they're not under the Police Commission. They're under the Ministry of Interior, Chukwurali. So let's give an example. They're under the Ministry of Interior. I believe the police is to help propagate, to help combat crime, which is actually supposed to be under the Ministry of Justice. Oh, wow, we're in Nigeria, we don't actually put things where they're supposed to be. Ministry of Police Affairs, actually under Interior. So, where we are supposed to have the police under the Ministry of Justice, and here's why. Justice is tasked with interpretation of laws, and justice is also tasked with enforcing these laws. No, executive is tasked with it. But here's the conundrum. If police is totally under the executive, it means that the executive can abuse power and police would not be able to do anything about it. If they were under justice, the Justice Department would be empowered to take certain functions against the executive and even against the Ministry of Defense. Naturally, under civil law, when a military man is not functioning, I'll take this case to Lagos State. When people stated that the governor of Lagos State, Governor Sanwo-Olu, could not stop that military man on duty who was going against the road. One, he was not on federal duty. Totally not on federal duty. And once a military man is not on federal duty, civil laws apply. So at the point civil laws apply, then he could be arrested. So a policeman can arrest a soldier because they're the first basic standard for civil law and enforcement. So as long as they are law enforcement, they should be under the Ministry of Justice. But because once in a while, going back to 2015, 2016, we like to use the military, we like to use the police to even harass judges. Case in context, Buhari's government, I believe, 2016, went into the judiciary, went into their quarters, and made a mess of things there. Next thing about the functional executive is that there must be decentralization. If you're going to ever talk about the matter of decentralization, state governors have deceived Nigerian citizens, I don't know for what reason, to blame the government entirely, federal government entirely. Now, this is not entirely true. Like, case in context, since the end of fuel subsidy, state governments have been receiving close to 25% more than their normal FAC allocation, and local governments have been receiving the same. But they still claim there's no money. They still claim, etc., etc., etc. State governments, on the other hand, I remember a case in context, Governor Dapo Abiodun, who bullied a local government chairman for not returning his FAC allocation for local government back to state coffers. And when he didn't, he actually enacted something that we've waited for in Nigeria to see. So he got the councillors who are legislative of the local government to remove or suspend the local government chairman and then take powers into their hands. So there's a big problem with decentralization. I would say at the federal level, Nigeria is a bit decentralized. Everybody always talks about, let's go back to this, let's go back to this. And some funny Nigerians talk about going back to regional government. Now, the question I always ask them is, you want to go back to regional government? We have a National Assembly that hasn't, 65% of them don't understand the Constitution. 65% of them don't amend laws. You want to go back to a parliamentary system, how's that going to work? Parliamentary system is based on debates of bills. It's totally legislative. When we have a weak legislative, how are you going to go back to a parliamentary system? So that doesn't work or doesn't make sense. But back to decentralization. State governors have held more from local government than federal government has held from states. Just a few things are being held from states. And I understand the argument with the federal government, because looking at it, with what has been released to states, case in context, let's say State Electoral Commission. Has any opposing party been able to win a local government election? That hasn't happened. That hasn't occurred. So state governments are more guilty of poor decentralization of powers than the federal is. I'm not saying the federal is not guilty, but we tend to focus more on state governments have tricked us into believing that also. Now, the third part will be, of course, held to accountability by the legislative. For a legislative to hold an executive accountable, legislative must understand why it is in power. Now, or its powers. Now, legislative in Nigeria is supposed to actually provide oversight on the executive. Now, here's the confusion. This is a legislative that signed off the Electoral Act, knowing that they were removed, or not reading the fact they were removed as delegates in a primaries, and submitted it to the president. Now, when the president assented, they ran back to the president and said they didn't read that part. She gave it to the president to assent. So if you have a poor legislative, you cannot have a functional executive. That's the truth. Rubber stamp, like we called it back in the days. Next will be the rule of law. I don't think we need to flog the rule of law. Rule of law, of course, ensures that everything functions. Everything is strictly adhered to the Constitution. A functional executive must be able to plan. In 2 years, where do you want to be? In 3 years, where do you want to be? We can't dilly-dally and say, I'll give an example. I had the opportunity one time to be in the midst of the Minister of Agriculture at the time. I won't call his name, Minister of Agriculture. And he was happy. Nigeria was exporting $1 billion of cocoa. Sounded brilliant. And they were celebrating it. And the question I asked got me thrown out of the Ministry of Agriculture for a long time. And the question I asked was, it's great that we're exporting $1 billion worth of cocoa. But here's the question. We're importing $6.5 billion of derivatives of cocoa, chocolates, cereal, etc. Do you understand? Beverages, etc. We're importing 6.5. That leaves a $5.5 billion deficit. There's nothing to celebrate till we start having indigenous companies producing this kind of thing. I got thrown out of the ministry and asking questions for asking such kind of questions. But that clearly showed that was an executive that was not ready to plan. And yeah, he's an appointed executive, but he was tasked with planning Nigeria's agricultural base. So planning is very key and critical to an executive. Lisa, could I have next slide? Thank you very much. So the ways to enhance a functional executive will clearly be participation. We cannot flog the participation horse more than ever. People think that participation is just voting. I think we clearly stated this yesterday, that a lot more than voting is concerned, or a lot more than voting is involved in the democratic process. So we need to be part of primaries. We need to be part of every process in which executives are picked over. I know Nigerians are, fixated on the president. By the time you're done with, the first 3 or 4 classes, I think you'll be less fixated on the president, because local government chairman is vested with a lot of things. I'll give an example. One of the things that everybody knows about is the NSAS situation. No, Nigerians were angry. Nigerians were pissed. But I'll tell you one little secret. Whatever shouldn't happen, happened at a toll gate, right? According to Nigeria's constitution, toll gates, bridges, markets are vested in control of the local government they are in. So Sanwo-Olu wasn't the guilty one. Local government chairman of Etiosa was the guilty one. That's simple. But, well, for Nigerians. Oh, I'm going to hurt somebody's emotions again. I won't say we won't read. So accountability in budgeting and planning. Now, most of the time, a lot of us do not look at Nigeria's budget. We don't know how much we're spending on education. We don't know how much we're spending on student loans. We don't know how much we're spending on health. We don't know how much we're spending on defense. This information is quite public, but we don't seem to understand how public it is and how we should pay attention to it and how it is responsible for the kind of things we need to do and how it affects our daily lives. We need to get this. The third will be to have financially unattractive offices. Now, most of the time, we have financially unattractive, or financially attractive or induced offices. This is what makes people go into the executive. I feel that people that love this country will go more into this thing. We're able to get a legislative that's able to cut down the massive allowances on the executive and the legislative, which function. The fourth will be freedom of speech. But I need to say this clearly. Nigerians love talking about freedom of speech, but anywhere in the world, your freedom of speech is limited. Or your expression of freedom is limited as long as it does not infringe on the freedoms guaranteed of someone else, or the freedoms guaranteed or someone else's freedom or independence or human rights. Nigerians are quick to run their mouths on social media. We are quick, we like hot takes. Let me blast this guy. What exactly do you think you're changing having hot takes? 270 retweets. Everybody feels happy. Okay. Maybe Elon Musk pays you a little dollars. Oh, yeah, fine. But how do you institutionalize driving change? Does that really drive change when you take your hot takes and say something stupid? So the truth is, freedom of speech is great against the functional executive, but the conversation should be limited to what exactly is going on. Not this man is old. You are this, you are that. Buhari has been a bad boy. What does that really change? Doesn't change anything, does it? But anyway, so in Nigeria. Now, to have a functional executive, the fifth point, I think, is the reason the electoral college exists. So understanding by the electorate of elected office jurisdiction and powers. Now, most of the time, the major problem in Nigeria is we do not understand the jurisdiction of, like most people think, the president is so powerful, he can do this, a president can start a war, a president cannot start a war. This is ratification of National Assembly. The things the president cannot do without, yeah, we might say there's still a rubber stamp National Assembly. The things the president cannot do without National Assembly. National Assembly too, I remember the case in context, President Muhammadu Buhari, and he was summoned by the National Assembly. And I remember his spokesman, no, was the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, who came out and said the National Assembly has no right to summon the president. But the truth is, within the clause and the context of the National Assembly, clearly states the National Assembly can summon any Nigerian at any point in time. The president is a Nigerian, right? As long as he remains a Nigerian, it means that the National Assembly can summon. But Nigerians on the streets were arguing this matter and didn't pay attention to the actual laws which exist in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So understanding is key for us to engage. I've always said something clearly. You cannot engage a system you do not understand. That is the plain truth. You might find it hard to understand, but that's the plain truth. Lisa, could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So the executive is the steering rudder of governance, and its operation signals development or degradation. The choice always is ours in this conversation. Thank you very much. I believe this is the last slide. Lisa, am I right? Last slide, right?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Went through this very simply. I know that there will be a lot of questions, so I just went through this so that we could have quite an interactive session. I went through it quickly so that we could have an interactive session as regards to executive. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. So I'll take your questions in a bit.
Thank you very much, Dee, for that very insightful and interesting class. I believe we've learned so much and we have questions. So you can either drop your questions in the chat box or raise your hands. Okay, we have Tukuraliu. Okay,
Hello,
you can go
good
ahead and ask your
evening.
question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
My name is Tukur Aliu. Good evening, Mr. Law.
Could you speak a little bit higher? I can barely
Good
hear you.
evening, Mr. Law. My name is Tukur Aliu.
Okay, Tukuraliu, how are you?
Yes, I'm asking on the second to the last slide on the enhancing the function of executive. Number 3, financial unattractive office. How can we achieve that? Who is to take that action? That's one. And number 2, you've mentioned that the governor is not belonging.
Could I answer your questions as they come so that I will not mix them up? So while talking about the financially unattractive offices, I said that power is vested till we elect the kind of legislative that is going to actually take such actions. We're in a quagmire. So we need to have a legislative because the power is vested in legislative. Even the National Assembly's budget is actually vested in the hands of the National Assembly. Meaning even the president, as much as he dislikes how much legislative is earning, legislative made the laws in Nigeria, and this is why they are so cookish. They made laws that give them power to control their own budget. That's how bad the National Assembly is. So sometimes the National Assembly has a budget of 109 billion for 109 people. which sometimes is close to 5 or 6% of Nigeria's budget. So it's to get a sensible legislative before we can have this kind of situation. So your second question.
Okay, my second question is on the statement that governor is not belong to any political party. I need more explanation.
I didn't say the governor. Tukur, I didn't say the governor does not belong to any political party. Please do not misquote me.
So
I said the seat of government, the seat of the governor does not belong to any political party. It belongs to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's the seat. The governor, of course, must get there through a political party. There's no other route. But his seat and his actions, meaning while he acts as governor, he cannot be he cannot be polarized to a particular party, or not polarized. He cannot be tuned to a political party, or he cannot claim a political party owns the state, or etc. That is wrong. It's totally wrong, because it's sworn to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and not the Constitution of the party. So I didn't say a governor cannot be part of the party. I was saying the seat which he sits on. It's not party given.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Thank you very much. Hello, guys. What's next? Hello?
Okay, Adams, I've asked you to unmute. You can go ahead and ask the question.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Kunle Lawal. Thank you very much, sir, for the mind-changing and educating session. So my first question has actually been asked by the previous speaker, and the second question is actually about the type of executive which is elected and appointed. So I want to ask, is there a criteria or is there a qualification for the executive to appoint someone? Let's take, for example, now, is there a criteria it takes for the governor to appoint anyone in a position? So yes, that's my question.
Yeah, if you notice, whenever this conversation is being brought up as regards what they call it, as regards appointments, it clearly serves at the pleasure of the president, serves at the pleasure of His Excellency the Governor, or serves at the pleasure of honorable local government chairman. So the criteria will be picked by who. So democracy trusts that the people will pick an executive that will make these choices responsibly, so that when they are picking these people, they will pick them based on context. So it's very, very important who you pick as president, governor, or local government chairman, because it will be based on their pleasure to pick those that will work with them. Hello?
Edith, could you help make Charlie a co-host? I think she's having a challenge on meeting.
Lisa, Charlie has been going in and out. There's been so much, how do I put it? There's been so much distortions within this class. I'm totally not happy with it. People are handling this, our 14th cohort, you're handling it like this is your second cohort or something. I'm not impressed. Everybody's doing what they feel like doing. For me, that is totally annoying.
Ibrahim,
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ibrahim Mustafa, calling from Borno State.
Hey, Ibrahim.
Honorable Lawan, my questions remain like this.
Sir, first and foremost, I'm not honorable. And if you're ever going to refer, if you're going to refer to me based on the fact that I ran for Senate, the term for Senate is distinguished, not honorable. Honorable is for local government chairman, House of Reps.
Yes, sir.
But back to okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Most applied, sir. My question is regarding elected and appointed executive. It seems most of the executives do normally take the responsibility of all the positions diagonally, as you make mention of there's supposed to be separation of power among the various units of the government, where everybody has his own responsibility. But in practical, it's not like that. But theoretically, it's written in this the Constitution and other state legislative rules. But in practical, honestly speaking, the executive governors do normally takes everything diagonally. They don't separate function to other appointed executives. So that is my challenge. I do normally observe it, and I need more clarification on this scenario, sir. Thank you for your
The
time,
funny
sir.
thing, Paul, thank you very much. So his name again, sorry, I missed it.
Ibrahim
Hello?
Mustafa.
Okay,
Ibrahim
Ibrahim. Okay, I have my namesake. So now this is funny, Ibrahim. I'm going to use the simplest analogy possible. So we all are people of different faiths, religions, etc., right?
Yes, sir.
There's what the Holy Book says, and there's what people in the religion do, right?
Of
Are
course.
they the same sometimes? Are they the same sometimes?
They are not.
Oh, okay. Does that mean that the book is wrong? The Holy Book is wrong?
It's not wrong.
Okay. So people have chosen, same thing with the Constitution. The Constitution is right. The Constitution is limited to you knowing it. So if everybody feels, I'll give you an example. Sheyi Makinde, when he got into office 2019, Sheyi Makinde instituted the sack of elected local government chairmen. They took him to court. And he lost. And they were reinstated. And Sheyi Makinde said he had seen other governors sack local government chairmen. So he thought he could sack local government chairmen. Please, how can you sack an elected position?
It's impossible.
But it was an error. But his error was not because he didn't love democracy. His error was because he had seen. So I'll say this. I said this yesterday. There's a culture of what politics is, which has been created. Culture is defined as the way of life. So there's a culture of what we've created to be politics, which is totally away from what is basically put down by the Constitution. And if we Nigerians have started to tilt towards the culture and are practicing towards the culture, we have left the rules. So if a governor is abusing power, it is because people in the states do not know the jurisdiction of the powers of a governor and have not called him to order based on his limits. That's thinking. Democracy can only function with a politically literate society. Full stop. Brian, I hope that answers the question.
That is answer, sir. Thank you very much for your
Thank
answer,
you very
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Edie. Peter, you've been asked to unmute. Please ask your question.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, Mr. Akunle. My question is, I dropped the questions in the group, in the chat box, but I'm going to ask because they've not picked the question. So the question is about the appointed and the elected executive. The case in point where you mentioned Festus Keyamo's scenario. So the question would be, since the Electoral Act provides that serving or someone who is serving in the government should not campaign for another person trying to come into power, how do we now enforce this law? Like, is there a punishment for that? Because I believe since the Electoral Act provides that, okay, you shouldn't do this, then there should be a punishment for whoever does it. And so how do we enforce it? What is the penalty? First question.
Let me ask you. Let me tell you something. Laws cannot function if the people that live within the society do not know the laws. If I did not say this to you, you would not have known it. We'll get to the Electoral Act, and when you do it, I'll cite the exact clause there. You understand? That no arm or no state arm of government, including NTA, etc., cannot support a candidate. It is law. Is it adhered to? No. Do Nigerians know it? No. Do you know what that means? It means that even when a governor is campaigning, he cannot use his official governor's card to campaign because the card does not belong. It's an instrument of the state. But we're yet to get there. The more we know, the more we understand, the more we get forward. So
there's
yes,
nothing we can
there's
do
a
about
point.
it when
When all of you in Nigeria know, it will not be done.
Okay. So the
All right,
second
thank you,
question.
Edie.
There's
I
a
believe that
second
answered your question.
There's a second question.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned something about federal allocation too. I think I'm going to get a similar reply, but I'll ask regardless. You said the federal allocation has increased since the fuel subsidy has been removed. So my question would be, why, since the federal government is the apex authority in the country, why can't they enforce the appropriate use of that allocation by state and local government, so that we will not continue to blame the federal government?
Oga, I don't know which one you want. You want a democratic government, and at the same time you want a militarized option. Which
No,
one
I'm not
do you
saying
want?
military. Like I said,
No. Yes, because within the jurisdiction, the job of the federal is just to pass the money to state and local governments. That's all the federal job is. They cannot query them on the functions and use. What state do you come from, sir?
I'm from Ondo State.
Do you know your local government's FAC allocation?
No, I don't.
I'll tell you something. There's no local government in Nigeria that earns less than 300 million per month in FAC allocation. When you go to, if you're conversant in places like Lagos, Alimosho earns 1.1 billion per month in FAC allocation. Amac earns like 968. Abaji, for those living in Abuja, earns close to 700 million. Abaji that they just sell oranges with 2 primary healthcare centers and 1 secondary school. Earns close to sham. And as long as we, the people, do not know and do not hold this, and this is a secret, local government people, that's your local government chairman and your local government vice chairman, they do not have immunity. Like, they are the first handshake of democracy to the people. So they don't have immunity. So you guys can sue them based on this if they decide to give the money to the governor. But Nigerians don't know. They don't care. And they keep doing the same thing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Peter, I think your questions have been answered. All right. So, Rachel Bassi, I've asked you to unmute. You can go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity, ma. I have 2 questions. So my first question is, though I didn't join at the start of the class, but I think I met a good time of the class. So concerning the executive arm of the government, he made mention of the appointed and the elected. So my question goes this way. I want to use my state as a case study. Upon the resumption of office by my governor, he made appointments, the commissioners, SAs, SSAs, this and that and this, head of boards, head of MDS and all of that. And then there was an executive summit. There was an executive summit. And I happened to have gotten a pass to that summit. So I was a participant in that summit. And different areas were discussed and all of that. And then they talked about the executive memo, where members of the executive councils can raise memos and debate on the memos and all of that. So I want to ask, is the debating of the memo I don't know if I'm confused, but let me just say, I don't know how to put the question, but let me just put it out there however it is. The debating of the memo and the whole presentation of memo and everything, isn't that similar with the responsibilities of the House of Assembly?
No. So the memo is, of course, so every government has an individual operating system. So your governor has probably an executive memo that helps the direction. Like, I'll give you an example. The federal government is championing renewed hope. and he has like 7 or 8 pillars within the renewed hope mantra. And so your governor will have his own 7 or 8 pillars, or 6 or 5, or well, it's Cross River, probably 2 or 3. But no offense. But he'll have his own thing, and everybody has to be on the same page. So hence the executive memo. So that memo is not, so when you hear executive memo, it's an executive memo, has nothing to do with legislative. Just so that everybody that is in different parastatals are in line with the general objective of the government. That's the state government.
Okay, thank you, sir. My second question goes this way. In regards to the appointment, appointed members, is there any place in the constitution that makes provisions or says serving corps members or civil servants cannot be appointed as state executives?
I don't think there's anywhere in the constitution. I think where we have a problem with that is in the Civil Service Act. But remember that if something is not stated in the constitution, or the constitution is silent about it, the constitution supersedes any act that exists in Nigeria. The constitution is first. So if there's an act that exists and contradicts the constitution, or comes or where the constitution is silent, it means that it's not unlawful, and means that can be, as long as the constitution supersedes all acts, laws, all acts, edicts, and etc. made. So the constitution supersedes. If the constitution has nothing to say about it, then it can override. It can be argued in court, dependent on whose argument. That will be left to the interpretation of the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And it's good to have a lady talking. We always have these arguments that, we could have women participating in governance and co. And then when the opportunity is being created for women to participate, I wouldn't say they are quiet in this class. I've only heard one girl. So would like to have more. The Electoral College is very sensitive to gender. Women have taken over the working mantra of the Electoral College. We'll soon beat them at it. Me and my guys are planning something. That's a joke, but anyway, I'd love to hear more women questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Ayi Lara, I'm thinking that's also a female. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. Point of correction, not a female, I'm a male. I'm on this call from Ogun. I'm on this call from Ogun State. Thank you. A big thank you to the college. My question is just simple and straightforward. Mr. Lawal was talking about budgets, about the legislators the other time. When we are talking about making the office less attractive. When the budgets are being read, they normally come to the public hearing, about the budgets. So I don't know what's exactly point of bringing the budget to public hearing. Is it for we, the Nigerians, to counter what they have put down, or what the executives have put down and them too? Or I don't really understand that. Thank you.
Wait, what's your name again? Hello? What's your name again? Hello, Lisa. Did you catch
Lara.
it? You said?
Ayi Lara Basit.
Yeah, saying what is the use of public hearing when it comes to budgets? I don't understand though. So every phase of government serves the people, and they must be accountable to such people, which means that they must present these budgets to the people. It is highly shocking that the Nigerian would not understand why these budgets are brought to public hearing. It's highly, highly shocking, because it is a requisite of governance, full requisite of governance. So it's highly, highly shocking.
Okay. I wouldn't say I don't understand. I wouldn't say that I don't know that it's part of the law or is part of the constitution to bring it to the public hearing. But I don't know, there is nothing the public hearing normally affects on the budget. So
Who
that's
told
why
you
I'm
that?
just a bit
Who told you that?
to my best of
told you
knowledge.
that?
To my best of knowledge.
Then, like we said, before when you get into this class, drop the knowledge you have outside that door.
Okay.
When it's
All right.
brought out, people can criticize how much is being spent on education. People can criticize how much is being spent on health before it's passed. People can criticize how much is being spent on this. If it's not enough here, it's not enough here. But those things have been adjusted before the final budget comes out. So if you do not participate, you cannot. So being ignorant of what actually goes on does not guarantee the fact that you can say, you can have an opinion on that matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we have just one last question from Olumide. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Olumide Okunbe from Ibadan, Oyo State. My question is still on appointed and elected officers. Now, it goes like this. The elected officials, after the election and everything, they do have appointed officials. And most of the times, we know that most of these appointed officials dance to the tunes of the elected officials, that is the appointed. What can we do, or as a citizen, if the actions of the appointed officials are not favorable to the mass or the people in the country? Is there a way, or is there a law that can use, or the constitution, what does it say about making the elected officials to maybe replace or make the appointed officials to do the right thing?
You see, that is why we always say, sir, that be careful who you elect. Because, like I said, and I stated earlier, they serve at the pleasure of whoever is governing, be it governor, be it local government chairman, or the president. In situations where these things happen, as long as they do not flagrantly break laws or can be found pilfering from public funds, there's little you can do, because they serve at the pleasure of the president. So only the president can appoint and not appoint. Do you understand? So at that point, that's why we always say, be careful of who you bring into government, because it's going to come with Alibaba and the 40 thieves, or it's going to come with he himself and a whole crew that's going to make it work. So you have those disparate, those divergent views. So Nigerians, and this is what makes me laugh at Nigerians. You don't want to participate in an election. No, the election is bad. They've already decided it's not our business, etc., etc. Then when he starts appointing who he feels like, you now be like, this was happening. This government is not good. You don't have the right to exchange a conversation because you allowed it. Inaction in a democracy is as guilty as making a bad choice. In short, inaction is equated to bad choice because you are the reason the bad choice exists. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. And just one more. I think there's a news item I saw recently. I've been trying to fact check it, but I've not been able to move forward. Is it true that the National Assembly passed the law on local government autonomy?
Not yet. It's still in debate. I think it's in third reading at the point. I don't see a reason why they must pass local government autonomy, because there's no conversation in the constitution for state autonomy. So why are they passing local government autonomy? There are 3 levels of government, and they've always functioned within the past. Yeah, and they all have each the same constitution, the same jurisdiction. So why do we need to put autonomy in front of local government? It's a very funny conversation, but by Nigeria.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Edie. Kabir, you can go ahead and ask your question. I've asked you to unmute.
All right,
I can
thank
see
you.
someone in the chat box saying you have an important question. You didn't indicate with the raise of your hand. That's what you should do, please, if you have a question. Please go ahead, Kabir.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. My question basically is, aside the constitution that you have laid more emphasis on, as a source of information, like
Wait, you said aside from the what? I
the
didn't hear you.
Constitution, Nigerian Constitution, that you have made us know that it's essential to understand the intricacies inside. So aside that, what are the other sources that you could recommend for us to get first-hand information on this subject area?
What religion are you, sir? Sorry if I may ask.
I'm a Muslim.
Hello?
A Muslim.
Okay. You have one source of information for everything as regards your faith. True or false?
False.
I'm asking, why is
False.
it false? Everything emanates from the Holy Book, doesn't it?
Yes, that's it.
Why did you say false?
Yeah, there are still other sources that complement the Holy Book.
Complement, but the Holy Book still reigns supreme on top of those sources. True or false?
That's true.
Okay. Same with the Constitution.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that should be the last person that wants to ask a question.
The person that said you wanted.
I can't find you. Please indicate with a show of hand. Okay, but meanwhile, I think Favor has raised his or her hand. So you can go ahead and ask your question, Favor.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Kunle.
Good evening, Favor.
And Miss Chalia, it is Miss, or rather, not Kimura. All right, that being said, since we're talking about this.
I wasn't sure of the sex because Favor is a unisex name. So I wanted to be on the safe side. Noted.
Fine. All right. Since we're talking about the executive, and in the course of the last question, Kunle mentioned something about
Kunle?
When you were introducing yourself, you made us to understand that we could call you by.
Yeah. You can call
formal.
I'm just saying. No, what I was saying is you said Kunle mentioned, so I wanted to hear what you mentioned. That's why I said Kunle, as I mentioned what. That was what I wanted to hear.
I was not sure what your protest was about.
Okay, but I wasn't protesting, please. Thank you. I was just asking what Kunle mentioned.
Okay. You mentioned something about serving at the mercy of. Okay, so that brings me to my own question. I want to ask, what is the position of a deputy? We're talking about the executive. What is the position of a deputy now? Talking about appointed executives and elected executives. We've heard, we've seen, drama here and there, political dramas here and there, play on how deputy governors have been impeached. Now, there's this argument about the place of a deputy. If the Constitution backs the position of a deputy, or if the deputy is said to be serving at the mercy of, in quote, of the governor. So I would want you to throw light on
the word
that.
I used was the word I favor, please. The word I used was not mercy; it was pleasure.
Okay, pleasure.
Not mercy. Mercy is totally a whole different ball game.
Okay, so I would want to know if the place of a deputy is at the pleasure of, or if it is. I'm sure you get my question.
Yeah, your question is based on Edo State, right? If I'm right.
Yeah, based on Edo State and other issues, other states.
So I'm going to give a clear example. The Supreme Court has interpreted this, and case in context, Alex Lyon, right, of Bayelsa, won an election, his deputy was found out to have discrepancies with the speaker, papers, secondary school papers or whatever. Lion was on the parade ground when he was removed as governor, and the present governor was sworn in. Diri was sworn in. There is nowhere that the deputy, that's federally, there's nowhere that deputy's ticket is not tied, is not serving at the pleasure. Their tickets are tied together. We need to understand this. But now, welcome in state legislature that totally choose to abuse the constitution. Totally. These are people that do not even understand an iota of what should be done. But remember, if we're running a democracy and we're running a full democracy, we must allow states to make their laws. That's why somewhere like Lagos is bold enough to have 57 LCDs. Through Lagos, Nigeria has 20 local governments for Lagos. Lagos can have 57 LCDs, how it feels like. If that's what makes Lagos feel good. Case in context, Edo State. Federally, Philip Shaibu's ticket is tied to, what's his name? Favor, what's your governor's name? His name just slipped my head. Philip Shaibu's, he said? Obaseki, yes. Philip Shaibu's ticket is tied to Obaseki federally. But if the state decides to exclude Philip Shaibu from Obaseki, that is Edo State business. The federal does not see it that way. That's totally Edo State's business. And the federal will look away because it's a state case. That's why a state can insert Sharia into its laws. But Sharia cannot over-subsume the constitution. So states are guaranteed chances to make their laws. It's just like within a local government. A local government can make its own laws via its councillors, but it must not contradict or contravene the constitution. They will look away if it doesn't. Do you understand? But if it does, the constitution will reign supreme. So as regards the case of Edo, it is right and wrong at the same time. Right meaning states have the right to make their own laws. Wrong being the tickets are tied together and it's a wrong precedence to present to the Nigerian population. Thanks.
So are you saying that the position of the deputy is rather not independent from that of the governor?
Let's go back. Let's go back to primaries. When you pick your deputy, your tickets are tied together. Hence, I used the Alex Lyon case. Lyon did not have an infringement on the Electoral Act or any law of Nigeria, but his deputy did. Who was not sworn in as governor? Was it not Lyon in Bayelsa? You're conversant to that case, right?
Yeah.
It clearly states that both tickets are tied together. A deputy is not serving at the pleasure. Okay, he's serving at the pleasure because it's actually the person who bought the governorship form that picks his deputy. But the moment he picks him, they are conjoined twins. There's no separation. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Edie. Manasseh, you can go ahead and ask your question. You've been asked to unmute.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah. Just some few comments, and then we ask a question. My major concern has with the executive, especially the state governors, has always been around the tenure of local governments and then elected local government chairman. The practices always tell you that it's the State House of Assembly or the state houses of assembly that determine the duration of the tenure. And then most times you find state governors like coming to dissolve the local government executives and then decide to appoint caretaker chairman or transition, or they call them transition committee chairman. My problem mostly, just as you've rightly said, a lot of times Nigerians don't really know what's enshrined in the constitution, and then a lot of times a lot of us know that it is wrong, but we tend to maybe close our eyes to some of these abnormalities. And then sometimes you just feel, okay, well, the president doesn't have the right to control or have a say in the runnings of governments of states. But the local government situation is really disturbing. So I don't know what your take is on that, as it has to do with the executive.
Well, I've stated, I think my position has been clear even when we're talking along the lines. I've always stated that state governments have kidnapped the local government. They've kidnapped the state legislatures. I'm always saying it. Like the situation mentioned in Edo would not occur if the state governor has not kidnapped the state legislature. So my position has always been clear of that. That's not the position of the college, though. That's my personal position. And I feel that state governors are actually totalitarian right now. And I'm fully against them having state police, because I know that will be the end of it. So that's my own personal opinion, not the opinion of the college. I retreat not the position of the college. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Edie. Ibrahim, I can see that you're raising your hand in the video. You're supposed to show a raise of hand on Zoom. You go to reactions, you see a place where you're supposed to
Lisa, can you just unmute it, Brian? It probably doesn't
Yes,
know.
just for future reference. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Executive Director.
Good evening, sir.
I understand that you are a graduate of Ahmadu Bello University with BA Public Administration in 2002. That is very nice. And I also realized that you are one time a senatorial candidate for Alliance for New Nigeria. It is great to have you people like you, young and energetic people joining politics. Okay, my question is, number one of the functions of the executive is appointment. Okay, if that is the case, why do they have to take it to the legislature for clearance? Otherwise, it has to be in concurrent list, both the executives and the legislature. That is number one. And number two, under the Indian presidential system, you will find that president used to appoint prime minister. Why do you think, in your own opinion, this happened in some other country, and do you think it can also happen here in Nigeria? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So, Ibrahim, first and foremost, you need to understand that legislative has oversight over all appointments made by the executive. And even if you go into the parliamentary system, appointments also are subject to legislative ratification. This is to ensure checks and balances on the executive or on the executive act. That's the reason. Secondly, Nigeria in the 60s used to have a president and a prime minister. That's like the Indian system. I would say that Nigeria has divorced itself from that position, and it gives too much ceremonial power into two different things. You'll not know who exactly is fully in control. Of course, the president then was Nnamdi Azikiwe, and the prime minister then was Tafawa Balewa. The prime minister seemed to hold more sway because he was more in tune with the legislature. So Tafawa Balewa seemed more powerful than the. Could somebody switch off their mic? So, I mean, Lisa, can you mute everyone except myself? Hello. So with Tafawa Balewa seemed more in control than Nnamdi Azikiwe ever was. I think the system of government we run right now, still large. I believe it could be brought down a little bit, but I do not believe we need the office of the Prime Minister right now. It'll just complicate matters a little bit, and it would be too much diversion to the kind of democracy we practice. Like I said, right now, Nigeria, I can't even support Nigeria going to a parliamentary system because Nigeria does not even have a fully functional or fully literate National Assembly that understands the Constitution. So I don't agree with that. And I also think there's a lot we need to do around that conversation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Edie. There's a question in the chat box from Jeremiah Onome Colin. He said the local government chairman appoints SAs and secretaries. What is the duty of the said secretary, let's say of education, when the allowances of teachers are being withheld, even though it has been allocated? Case study of Kwali Area Council of the FCT.
Now, the jurisdiction of, so the secretary is like commissioner at the local government. If salaries are being held, you cannot, how do I put it? You cannot hold the secretary directly for that. Disbursement of such funds are vested in the power of the executive. Just like if salaries of ASU are being negotiated, they are being negotiated with the president. Yeah, the Minister of Education is in the room, but the Minister of Education is just in the room as a subservient in charge of that ministry and, to enable cross conversation. But the disbursement of funds is still vested in the hands of the president. So local government chairman, as regards Kwali area, is still in charge of, you can't hold the Secretary of Education liable because his official jurisdiction does not cover disbursement of such funds. So if those funds are held, he cannot hold it. Only local government chairman can hold them. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Edie. I believe your question has been answered. Collins?
Somebody asked the question just now. Said, why, Lisa,
yes.
Why is it that federal government doesn't have control over state government like the state government has control over local government? That is because federal government is following the institution and the law, and state governments have broken the constitution and the law. It's very simple.
Okay. Chukwulote, I believe that has been addressed in simple words. So I think that's the last question for today. I can't see any hands raised and I can't see any more questions in the chat box. So thank you very much, Edie. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So thank you, everyone. We look forward to you guys in class. I would say compared to the class, the people that registered to the course, class is still, poorly attended. We're hitting about less than about a quarter of normal class. I'd like to say where we will be reviewing attendances. I need you guys to understand that you can't just bust into the class and write your name. We take attendance of times, whether you're around or whatever. And we look forward to other conversations. So thank you, everyone. And on behalf of the Electoral College, we'll see you tomorrow at 5. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the work put in. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening on behalf of the Electoral College and myself.
Thank you, Edie. Ibrahim is asking how he can get your book, The Candidates.
Let candidates tell him to Google it. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. Classes continue tomorrow by 5 p.m. And later today, you'll be posted the different list of your names and the different parties you belong to will be posted on the Telegram group. So please watch out for that and start joining as soon as you see that. So thank you all and see you tomorrow.